Is anybody there? We are here. Hi, Padelia. Are you, in fact, wearing your pajamas? Morning. So, as people are gathering, I can say that it's entirely crazy to have this flipped camera experience. The computer turns it into a mirror image, and so everything is left, right, or otherwise. Morning, Dave. So, right now, we are up to 10 people watching, which is pretty cool. We will hang for a few minutes while folks are figuring out how to log on and all of that. We've got just a couple minutes before 10 o'clock. But if you are just checking in, it's great to see you here. Thank you for being here. Feel free to say hi in the comments. I will tell you as we get to the prayers of the people opportunity for this morning, that'll be a space where we can actually offer prayers for one another. So when we get to that time, find your comment button and just share when the time is appropriate what it is you might want us to be in prayer for you or with you about, and we will make that happen. Hi, Mart's family. Russ and Lisa, great to see you. Apparently, somebody from Maine uh, calling me Uncle Colin, so that's going to be Darcy or Dory or all of them. It's great to see you guys here. Steve Simpson, good to see you. Still got to do lunch. Kathy, great to have you here. My goodness, we're up to 18. Nancy Brenda, great to have you with us. We'll start in just a couple of minutes. I can tell you that coffee hour is going to be held at your house for you, by you today. So I hope that there's something lovely there. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. We have cleared 21 people, which is pretty great. It's wonderful to have you all here. Thank you for just taking the adventure and joining along with me in this space. There's a big old learning curve here, but apparently this is working so far, so we'll call that a joy and a gift. It is great to have you all here. Sorry for the circumstances of it, but also what a great opportunity to find a way to be creative and connect with each other in ways that are meaningful and powerful and good. So if we can recognize right off the bat that this is the day that the Lord has made, we can rejoice and be glad in it, even in the midst of the national anxiety, even in the midst of our structural changes in our lives. Gather, even if it is this way, it is a lovely opportunity to have folks connect and worship and do all of that. I see Ain is here. Ain, it's great to have you here. And you don't have to play today, but you can if you want. We just can't hear you. So blessings to you. I thought we might start our call to worship this day just with a piece that we did on Christmas, because why not? It's an opportunity for us to gather. You can sing along at home. You can sing as loud and as full voiced as you wish, so long as those who are also in the home with you do not object. Friends, let us recognize we can come here to the light. Well, here is the light of hope. Come to the light, bring everything that you know. Come to the stable in from the field, follow the star, have no fear, for unto you this night is born. Oh, well, here is the light of peace. Come to the light and know that you are free. Come to the stable in from the field, follow the star, have no fear, for unto you this night is born. Peace. Well, here is the light of joy, innocent grace in the face of Mary's little boy. So come to the stable in from the field. Follow the star, have no fear, for unto you this night is born joy. Well, here is the light of love. In the midst of the darkness, there is this gift from above. Come to the stable in from the field. Follow the star, have no fear, for unto you this night is born love. Well, here is the light of Christ. Come to the light here. Come now to new life. Oh, come to the stable in from the field. Follow the star, have no fear, for unto you this night is born our Christ. Come to the stable in from the field. Follow the star, have no fear, for unto you this night is born. Oh, peace, joy, and love, Christ, come to the light. Come to the light. Come to the light. So friends, we have a chance to do just that. We have a chance to gather in hope and peace and joy and love and all of that stuff. Even as schools shut down and people have some risk factors and such like that, we can still gather. What a gift that is. I thought we might start with a bit of a call to worship brought to you by one smarter and more poetic than I. That would be Meditations of the Heart, Howard Thurman. And he has a little poem that he wrote called Our Little Lives. Our little lives, our big problems, we place upon thy altar. The quietness in thy temple of silence again and again rebuffs us. For some there is no discipline to hold them steady in the waiting, and the minds reject the noiseless invasion of thy spirit. For some there is no will to offer what is central in the thoughts. The confusion is so manifest there is no starting place to take hold. For some, the evils of the world tear down all concentrations and scatter the focus of the high resolves. War and threat of war has covered us with heavy shadows, making the big days with foreboding, the nights crowded with frenzied dreams and restless churnings. We do not know how to do what we know to do. We do not know how to be what we know to be. Our little lives, our big problems, we place these upon thy altar. Brood over our spirits, our God. Blow upon whatever dream thou hast for us. that there may glow once again upon our hearths the light from thy altar. Pour out upon us whatever our spirit needs of lift, of release, that we may find strength for these days, courage and hope for tomorrow. In confidence we rest in thy sustaining grace, which makes possible triumph in defeat, gain in loss, and love in hate. We rejoice this day to say, our little lives, our big problems, we place these upon thy altar. For those who have checked in, it's great to see you. So let me give you just a minute to consider if the adventures of the world right now, if the challenges that are before you are claiming your heart so fully that it is hard to see the opportunities yet for grace. For those who know the theology of this space and of this particular pastor, I will never say that God has created COVID-19 so that we can all learn some good lesson and be better people. However, it is here and in this adventure, we have an opportunity to have eyes wide open. We have this extraordinary moment where we can choose to be creative, adventurous, to be reminded of the necessity and the power of connection. And so I wonder if our first instinct in the midst of this drama and trauma is to retreat instead of advance, is to hunker down instead of reach out. I'm not talking about going to the concert anyways. I'm not talking about what it means to put ourselves foolishly at risk in public spaces full of infection, but I am talking about whether we are now retreating into just our own self-protection or taking advantage of this reminder of how powerful and important it is to be in connection. It's a prayer of confession, in case you're wondering. Do we find ourselves more afraid than compassionate? If so, it's a natural instinct. And it's not without ground. This is not good, and it will have consequence, and that consequence is beginning already, and there are those who will be pained by it. And yet, we are asked to fear not to be foolish or reckless, but to fear not. For connection and duty and goodness are still things we are called to be a part of, and when we are a part of them, we find that it's actually easier to honor that commandment, to fear not. You want to take just a moment to breathe deep, to recognize that your fear is not the biggest and most powerful thing in this story. That the necessity for human connection, the goodness that is found in discipleship, the love of God, and the presence of Christ is bigger. If those things are true for you, or you want them to be true for you, just take a moment to close your eyes. I can't see if you're actually doing it, but we're going to trust that it's true. And just ponder what it means to love more than your fear. Friends, here's what I can promise you. I could find no space in Scripture where Jesus ever told anybody it was too late to breathe deep and to love fully, to turn again and to reach out. There was no moment where an act of kindness was wasted or unworthy. Know that you are still gifted and empowered and called to do just exactly those things. Now, you'll see some signs behind us, that's for the Vital Congregations Initiative, for those who are connected to the First Presbyterian Church here. We are suspending that particular sermon series until we're able to be back in person and continue our Wednesday Lenten suppers and studies along that. Thank you for those who have connected so far. And also know that we will just pick it back up when we're able to gather fully and in person, because to try and do this virtually would not give honor to the process that we are so invested in. So you're going to be looking at me for a little while with a little more topical pieces as we go. So instead of the passage that was set for Vital Congregations today, I'm going to be reading a piece of scripture to you, which comes from the 10th chapter of the Gospel of Luke. I am reading from the English Standard Version. For those of you who have it memorized, the language may be just a little bit different. For those who may have your Bibles in front of you, go ahead and turn to the 10th chapter of Luke. For those who are just watching and listening, here you go. After this, Jesus appointed 72 others and sent them out ahead of him, 2 by 2, into every town and place where he himself was about to go. And he said to them, "The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest, and send out laborers into this harvest." And then later in the chapter, there is one who comes to Jesus and wants to know that he's doing the right and the good thing. But he, desiring to justify himself, said to Jesus, "Who is my neighbor?" And Jesus replied, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell among robbers, who stripped him and beat him and departed, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a priest was going down the road, and he saw him and passed by on the other side. So likewise a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he journeyed, came to where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. He went to him and bound up his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he set him on his own animal and brought him to an inn and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, 'Take care of him, and whatever more you spend, I will repay you when I come back.' Which of these 3, do you think, proved to be a neighbor to the one who fell among the robbers?" He said, "The one who showed mercy." And Jesus said to him, "Go and do likewise." Go and do likewise is an invitation to actually participate in some pretty joyous stuff, in some pretty beautiful things. The passage I didn't read, that's also part of Luke chapter 10, talks about the disciples just being thrilled that they could actually participate in healing, that they could have power over demonic spirits, that snakes and scorpions would not wound them. And Jesus instructs them not to just delight in their ability to have power over the darkness of the world, but to delight in the fact that their names are written in heaven, that they get to participate in beauty, that they get to participate in things that are life-giving and extraordinary, even in a broken world. In this season of COVID-19, I want to suggest that some people are very much being robbed. They're being robbed and beaten by the side of the road as the world is taking from them a sense of security. There are some folks who are having their lives overturned and upturned without the security blanket of things like salaried positions or childcare. There are folks for whom communities such as a church are the only healthy connections and social interactions that they have. And as the church closes, as other social interactions shut down, they don't have the possibility of the necessary connections to other humans that are so necessary for their life and for their well-being. This pandemic has robbed and beaten them by the side of the road. Question is, how do we respond? The question is, what is our highest task and goal in the midst of moments like this? Now, before I go to the fairly obvious answer of that one, let me also suggest if anybody here is watching or listening, and you are in that category of humanity, if this COVID-19 pandemic thing is a real physical threat to you, if you're in that high risk category, do us a favor and reach out. Folks will hopefully be reaching out to you, but it's also incredibly helpful to know that if there is need or isolation in your life that we can respond to, it's very helpful to know that so that we can try. We will stumble and bumble and fail, and it will be imperfect, but it will not be unattempted. So if you are listening and need that, just grab the website, grab the phone, give me a call, send us an email. Those things will still be operating and still up and happening in the life of this community, and we will do our best to respond to you. For the rest of us who are in that category of still being mobile, of still being able to reach out and connect, for those of us who may have the incredible privilege of having a few extra resources or a little free time, of being able to work from home, of being in relative good health, for the rest of us, the question is, who is my neighbor? How do we respond? What does it mean to care for one another in a season like this? I know a couple folks who are checked in. Right now we're up to 45. That's pretty cool. A couple of you are people in the medical profession, and you may be hands-on to folks who are actually suffering from this. And thank you for that good and blessed and occasionally risky work. Thank you for keeping human touch and compassion in places where people are suffering and many others turn away. For many of the rest of us, what do we do with our homes, our phone calls, our free time, our sudden recognition that isolation can be really hard? I'm going to suggest that there's some ways we can connect. There's some gifts that we can give. There's some love we have to offer. And there's some ways in which we can respond as if we were, in fact, Christ himself. C.S. Lewis, the joyful Christian, talks about putting on Christ. And it's a fairly long passage, but that's all right. We got nothing else to do today. He says this in the very first words of the Lord's Prayer. We hear, Our Father. Do you see what those words mean? They mean, quite frankly, that you are putting yourself in the place of the child of God. To put it bluntly, you have the opportunity to dress up as Christ. If you like, you are pretending. Because, of course, the moment you realize what the words mean, you realize that you are not the child of God. You are not Christ himself. You are not being like the child of God, whose will and interests are at one with those of the Father. You are a bundle of self-centered fears, hopes, greeds, jealousy, and self-conceit, so that, in a way, this dressing up as Christ is a piece of outrageous cheek. But the odd thing is, Jesus ordered us to do it. Why? What is the good of pretending to be what we are not? Well, even on the human level, you know, there are two kinds of pretending. There is a bad kind, where the pretense is there instead of the real thing. And when one pretends that they are going to help you instead of really helping you. But there's also a good kind, where the pretense leads up to the real thing. When you are not feeling particularly friendly, but you know you ought to be. The best thing you can do very often is to put on a friendly manner and behave as if you were a nicer person than you actually are. And in a few minutes, as many of us have noticed, you will be really feeling friendlier than you were. Very often, the only way to get the quality in reality is to start behaving as if you had it already. That is why children's games are so important. They are always pretending to be grown-ups, playing soldiers, playing shop, but all the time they are hardening their muscles and sharpening their wits so that the pretense of being grown-up helps them to grow up in earnest. Now, the moment you realize, here I am, dressing up as Christ, it is extremely likely that you will see it some way in which at that very moment the pretense could be made less of a pretense and more of a reality. You'll find several things going on in your mind which would not be going on there if you really were Christ himself. Well, stop them. Or you may realize that instead of saying your prayers, you ought to be downstairs writing a letter or helping your spouse to wash up. Well, go and do that. You see what is happening. The Christ himself, the Son of God, who is a man just like you and God just like his Father, is actually at your side and is already at the moment beginning to turn your pretense into a reality. This is not merely a fancy way of saying that your conscience is telling you what to do. If you simply ask your conscience, you get one result. If you remember that you are dressing up as Christ, you get a different one. There are lots of things which your conscience might not call definitely wrong, but which you will see at once you cannot go on doing if you are seriously trying to be like Christ. For if you are no longer simply thinking about right and wrong, you are trying to catch the good infection from a person. You are trying to catch the good infection from a person. It is more like painting a portrait than like obeying a set of rules. The odd thing is that while in one way it's much harder keeping the rules, in another way it is far easier. For when you dress up as Christ, Christ is at your side and beginning to turn you into the real thing. What if, in the midst of all this, we are honest about our fear and our challenge, our brokenness and our worry, and we commit to dressing up in the clothing of hope and compassion that we believe to be worthy? What if we don't pretend we are not unafraid, or we don't pretend that we are unafraid, we don't pretend that we are not anxious, and we behave as if we have hope. We behave as if other people matter. We behave as if this is not the end of our story or theirs. What if we consciously choose day by day to reach out and love other people, to make those connections, to put on enough of a non-anxious face that we are proclaiming good news even in the midst of trying times? It's not just faking it till we make it. C.S. Lewis points out a thing that I believe to be wholly true, which is when we find ourselves behaving as Christ, we actually find ourselves in the companionship of the holy. And when we are in the companionship of the holy, hope actually happens. Beautiful things are manifest. Lives are healed. Joy is known. Light shines in the darkness. And we ourselves get a little piece of that which we hope for in the world. By bearing witness and offering community to others, we realize we mean what we say. We realize that the things that are most important are actually present. This is no fun at all, friends. And it is an extraordinary opportunity for us to answer the call that I saw on Facebook, which, yes, I abolished my Lenten practice of being off of that, because in these extraordinary circumstances, it becomes a way to connect. There was a meme that came across Facebook that I would just leave with us today, and it is simply this: what act of kindness could you do today that would astonish people? Do that. Right now, the world is in need of folks like you and like me to put on what we claim to believe. to share it, to give it, to offer it freely. Right now, the world needs a whole bunch of folks playing dress up like Jesus because we actually believe Jesus gives us the clothes. Fear not. Love much. Wash your hands. And know that C.S. Lewis and maybe Pastor Colin are touching on something that is worthy. Dress up as Christ and know He is with you. And the world needs that right now, big time. May it be so. Bless you in the process. Now, during my little musical leave, study leave just a week or so ago, there was a bunch of folks who had paid to be at this songwriters conference. As the temperature is changing in here, my strings are moving, so forgive me for that. So there's a bunch of folks who came to this songwriters conference, and many of them were really gifted, and many of them were sort of there for a first time. And one of the things that became really frustrating was in this extraordinarily affirmational environment, in this place where everybody was wanted and welcomed and was fully qualified to be there just by virtue of their intention and their willingness. People apologized again and again and again. I'm sorry that I don't play like so and so. This song is not quite finished. I haven't really worked all of this out. I don't have the voice of somebody I heard just the other night. And again and again and again, the instructors, the leaders of this experience were saying, please don't apologize. We want you here. Your voice, your gift, your way of being able to do this is truly a blessing for the rest of us. That is true, friends, for each and every one of us. Our ways of acting out in the world, of dressing up like Christ, of behaving in ways that are healthy and good, will be different than somebody else's, but they are no less valuable. So when you find yourself saying, yeah, but I'm not this or I can't do that, do me a favor and honor the intention of this particular song, which was written for songwriters but also followers of Jesus. It's called No Apologies. The sign says, welcome, we're so glad you're here. For the ray of brilliance shining behind your fear. Sisters and brothers, this is not a test, just an opportunity for all to be blessed. No apologies for who you are, no apologies. You've come so far to join the chorus and the healing of the soul. So, no apology. You say, I'm sorry, it's not finished yet. None of us ever really are. I wish I was the stranger I just met. The stranger wishes they were you. So no apology for who you are. No apologies. You've come so far to join the chorus and the healing of the soul. So, no apology. Lift up your voice, offering your song. Play it like you mean it. We will come along. Holy and beautiful are you beyond this precious moment. There's just one thing to do. No apologies for who you are. No apologies. You've come so far to join the chorus and the healing of the soul. So, no apology. So don't try to be anything other than what you are and Christ has made you to be, and dress up in his spirit and go and do good in the world. Now, knowing that that is all true, I want to give us a chance to also be a people in prayer. And the way that this one works is the comment section of Facebook Live. So we're actually going to take a moment to pray for one another if we can do that. And what I would love to have you do is literally just type in the comment. I will say whatever it is you wrote out loud, and we'll each take a moment to hold that intention in prayer. We will just simply, I will speak a word, and then wherever you are, just, Lord, hear our prayer. So if there are specific things for which you would have us pray, type them out, and we will make this work. And as you were doing it, I will just acknowledge that school districts have closed, including the one here in Victor. For our children and our life and way of structure, it's just going to be 3 weeks of kids doing homework at home and having to do more housework than they want to, and we will be okay, and that is a hugely privileged position. There are folks for whom this is a massive challenge. And so for hourly workers at the school, for folks who don't have safe and effective childcare, for people who are having to make really hard decisions, I would offer a prayer for the kids who are reliant upon the food program there as their breakfast and their lunch 5 days a week, who will now lose easy access to that. I would offer our prayer. And so for them and all who will be so challenged by the closure of the schools, I ask that Lord might hear our prayer. What else is it we can be in prayer for? And I see them coming in. Praying for all the countries and people dealing with this mess. Lord, hear our prayer. For those who are traveling home, indeed, Lord, hear our prayer. We actually have a friend who's on a Fulbright program teaching in Budapest, Hungary. And after arranging for a year to be there with her 2 small children and her husband, they have been recalled. And so that program has been cut short, and now they need to come back and may have to be in quarantine and figure out how they're going to live in their home, which I believe they have leased out for the year. There's lots of folks who are having vacation and work and international travel and connection and important things that are being shut down. So for Mary and crew and all who are touched in that, we say, Lord, hear our prayer. praying for wisdom and guidance, and that God may be glorified in the midst of all of this. It is an incredible opportunity that might, in fact, from the good intentions and the great choices of those who follow this Christ, that may be a possible thing. May it be so. Lord, hear our prayers. Sue, yes, the children in school who are depending on the breakfast and lunch program, as mentioned before. Libby asked that we pray for family and friends who are very far from us, as there are many, and certainly your son will, as he is off in Germany in the midst of this mess. We say, Lord, hear our prayer. Kathy, thank you for prayers for the medical professionals, the frontline responders and workers in the midst of this, who are directly coming into contact with the things so many of the rest of us are running from. For them, Lord, hear our prayer. Steve, yes, touching in on that same theme of the medical professionals. For Kathy Room, those unable to travel home due to travel restrictions. Yes, indeed, there are folks who are caught in the midst of all of this. May there be compassion and folks who recognize good neighbors in that space and offer healthy homes and care. Lord, hear our prayer. Kristen, prayers for my husband as we're getting over the flu. Also prayers for small businesses during this time of uncertainty. Absolutely. Just a super quick recommendation I saw that I will pass along to you. If you do have some extra funds and those kinds of pieces, this is a beautiful time to buy gift certificates, which allows small businesses to have some income, and then when restrictions are lifted, go out and have a dinner later. But to find a way to continue to support local businesses and the folks that they all care for. For them, Lord, hear our prayer. Heather McAdoo asked that we pray for our seniors. I'm assuming that doesn't mean 12th graders in school, although it might. I believe it is in reference to those who are in the high-risk pool of being over 60. I know some folks who don't feel like that qualifies, but medically there's a little bit of a cutoff there. And so for all the folks who are in that space and age group and at a higher place of risk, absolutely, Lord, hear our prayer. For Philip Dean, safe travel home from Florida. Yes, indeed, sir. Lord, hear our prayer. Russell is pointing out that it's Lisa's birthday on Tuesday, so we will acknowledge that in some annoying and public way. But for now, happy birthday, Lisa. We love you and are glad to see that. And I'm not just going to sing solo for that one, but if you all want to call them up and then give her a word of celebration, please feel free to do so. Dave Henderson, for finding new ways to see the needs and help others in this strange time. Absolutely. It is an extraordinary opportunity and a great challenge. It will take creativity and faithfulness and a certain measure of both courage and wisdom. And may we seek that, and may that be possible for us all. Lord, hear our prayer. Megan Antonito, for my brother-in-law waiting to hear if a patient of his has been diagnosed with COVID-19 and what that then will mean for him, her sister, and nephew Teddy. Absolutely, Lord, hear our prayer. Ken asks that we be in prayer for the secluded and indigent that are not able to help themselves. You betcha, Lord, hear our prayer. Lori, it is good to see you. And she says, I'm trying to arrange staff to cover all those children and trying to buy food with quantity limitations. Please pray that we can help all the families that need us and keep those children and staff safe. For those who don't know, Lori runs one of the local daycare centers with great spirit and heart. Absolutely, for folks who are in that space doing the best they can, Lord, hear our prayer. Sue, for parents that may lose their jobs due to staying at home with their children, that is a true possibility and an obscene commentary on our current social net and structure, and it is painfully possible. Yes, indeed. Lord, hear our prayer. Patty asks that we pray for daughter Kristen and a quick recovery. Lord, hear our prayer. Sue, prayers for people in nursing that don't understand why their family cannot visit at this time. That is absolutely true. Nursing homes have shut down, and that sadly includes the presbytery leader's husband. He is in a nursing facility right now, and she is unable to visit him while he is in hospice. And that is a painful experience, certainly for them. Lord, hear our prayer. Shirley Rupert is connecting on the same piece. Kathy says, happy birthday, Lisa. And Heather, for families that are getting ready to welcome a new baby, may they be safe. What a strange time of great joy and also obvious risk for them and for all others. Lord, hear our prayer. I know there will be many others that come up, and please stay in contact with one another and me if there's a particular way that I can be helpful or in prayer for you. But for now, may we gather this and all the other intentions that are present in our heart for those who have been named and those who have not, as together we say, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. So, friends, I covet your feedback. Feel free to reach out to me in the days ahead if this is an experience that has any merit or value, or there may be ways to adjust it. We do have some copyright considerations around music. We do have some restrictions around gathering and all of that. But thank you, thank you, thank you for taking the time this morning to tune in, to set eyes on, to listen, and to consider. We can do things like this on a very regular basis to stay more connected than we may even have been before. What an irony and a gift that might be. But for now, for those who know it, I invite you to sing along. If you don't know it, I invite you to sing along. I can't hear you, but it's a song that is an ancient song of hope, an ancient song of blessing, and a bit of our modern tradition. May the peace of the Lord go with you, wherever he may send you. May he guide you through the wilderness, protect you in the storm. May he bring you home rejoicing at the wonders he has shown you. May he bring you home rejoicing once again into these doors. May the peace of the Lord be with you. May the peace of the Lord go with you. May the peace of the Lord go with you, wherever he may send you. May he guide you through the wilderness and protect you in the storm. May he bring you home rejoicing at the wonders he has shown you. May he bring you home rejoicing once again into these doors. May the peace of the Lord be with you. May the peace of the Lord go with you. May the peace of the Lord be with you. May the peace of the Lord go with you. And so ends our first Facebook Live corporate worship service. Friends, thank you, thank you, thank you for being a part of it. Know that I am here. Our office hours remain this week. If there's any way that we need to connect or be in support of one another, please let us know that. And also keep an eye out for the things that are coming. There's further communication and opportunities to be in service and to be cared for. So just keep an eye on those pieces. Blessings to you. Call me if you need, and we're just about done. I'll stay on for just a minute or two if folks have anything comment-wise they want to share immediately. But other than that, you are free to go. Blessings. Love you. Go in peace. Well, Holly, good to see you. You're welcome. And Sue Hodder, good to see you. You are all welcome. Thank you, too. So it's somewhat fascinating to watch the number of viewers just slowly click down as people check out. It's entirely appropriate and completely fine, but this is a whole new experience for me. So thanks for tracking along. All right, folks. I think we're going to shut it down, but blessings to you. Be safe, be well, and be in contact. I will seek to be in contact with you as well.